Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to the Tesla question. And today's video is a follow-up to the previous one where I drove this car, Tesla Model Y long range, from northern Aberdeenshire up here down to Bournemouth on the south coast of England, and I was doing a comparison of what that trip was like versus what it would have been if I'd been driving my previous Volvo S90 diesel. And I like responding to comments, and somebody has already posted on that video, hey, well, there isn't a £5,000 Tesla option, but there is a £5,000 diesel option, so diesel is much cheaper when you consider the purchase cost. And that's actually a valid point. If you own a diesel and you've had it for a while, why would you want to get rid of it and buy an EV? And I am actually serious about this question, because yes, I can sit here and say that this Tesla is superior in a whole load of ways to my previous Volvo S90, and that was a palace compared to some other cars that you can get that are also powered by a diesel. And okay, if you are in parts of the world where diesel isn't really a thing, then call it petrol, call it whatever you want. Is buying an EV a better option than keeping your current car? So I think there's really two schools of thought on this one. The first one is that an EV is a significant upgrade in so many ways, a much simpler driving experience. The drivetrain is mechanically very simple, so you're almost certainly going to have a car that is extremely reliable and will last for a long time. It's a car that's got all of the latest technology on it, so all of the new safety features and systems and things, all of those warning bongers constantly going off, or the ones where you have to turn them off every time you start the car. You get all of that with an EV. Well, actually, you get those with any modern car now, regardless of the powertrain, but you know what I mean. But is that a better option for you than keeping your diesel? And of course, the other point is that from a cost perspective, the cheapest car that you have, or that you could have, is almost certainly the car that you already have, unless the car that you are driving is about to fall to bits or has got an expensive bill that isn't worth paying, or is just becoming catastrophically unreliable. The cheapest motoring option is always the car that you've got. Buying a new car, or even buying a new to you used car, doesn't make actually any sense if you think about it. And I'm going to illustrate that by talking about my journey from Volvo S90 diesel to this Tesla Model Y, because there was actually one in the middle. I actually got the Volvo as a complete bargain. It was a £50,000 car which had been pre-registered by the dealership, and they had done it as an end of quarter special where they had basically ticked every single options box that there was, and then they had sat it in their showroom as, hey, come and look at this mobile palace, isn't it pretty? But they weren't selling it, and by the time that I got to it, 5 months after they registered it, they were ready to get shut of it with a ridiculous deal. And genuinely, I think it was £51,000 at retail with all of the options, and they sold it to me for less than £33,000. And it had literally just sat in the showroom. It hadn't even been used for test drives. It was on delivery miles. It was in really good nick, despite the lots of bottoms going in and out of the car. And they were giving it away with, 1/3 off the price. So it was a serious bargain, and I genuinely liked the thing. But when I sold it, and I've looked back at my notes here, I sold the car just over 2 years after I had bought it, and I had put 20-odd thousand miles onto it. And looking at my notes here, what I decided to do was that I needed to get something that was bigger and wasn't running on the rubber band tyres that the Volvo was, because I'd moved to Scotland and I wanted a car that had a little bit more ground clearance and a bit more space, because the house that I'd bought needed a whole load of things doing to it, and I needed to shift things up and down to and from the tip. So I bought a Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. I'd had an Outlander plug-in hybrid previously, and I thought, let's get another one of those. So when I traded it in, basically I traded the keys to the Volvo, which had depreciated by 50% at the point where I sold it. A car which had cost, say, around 52 grand that was worth 16.5 grand at the point where I traded it in less than 3 years after it had been registered. So people talk about depreciation on EVs. Well, how about the depreciation? My diesel Volvo, I mean, it collapsed in price. So I traded it in for an Outlander and I paid £5,000 as an upgrade, but I was able to keep the existing finance that I had because I had bought the Volvo finance out and replaced it with a loan, and basically would just carry on paying the loan. I realized very quickly that I had made a mistake in getting rid of the Volvo. So I shouldn't have got rid of the Volvo. It was then the Mitsubishi which was traded in for this Tesla, and that was a car that I actually sold on Motorway, the website where you auction your car off to various car dealers. And by a wonderful quirk of fate, the Outlander, because of COVID and all the rest of it, had only depreciated by £500, despite the fact that I had doubled the mileage on it in 18 months. I'd put 20,000 miles on the car in 18 months, and it was worth 500 quid less than I'd paid for it. But we're going to park the Outlander out of the way, and we're going to talk about the Volvo and should I have kept the Volvo, because here's the interesting thing on this one. This video is brought to you by Millibricks, which is my online store for Lego compatible tanks, planes, jeeps and other World War II brick building toys. We have got all kinds of vehicles and planes and things online, including this fantastic Lancaster Bombers Dambusters edition. If you want to buy one of these, go to millibricks.co.uk and use the code GET for 10% off. If I had kept the Volvo, then I would have completely paid the finance on it off in the summer of 2024. And I'm recording this in April of 2025, and I've still got 18 months of payments to make on this car, plus the final payment at the end. I owe a lot of money on this car. Or I could have kept the Volvo, which I would have owned outright last summer. And basically at that point, it's not quite free motoring, but I mean, it's still, you know, I'm not paying any more finance had I kept the Volvo. And here's the problem with it. And I look back on this and think, what on earth was I thinking? Because you're always looking for the next thing. But actually, had I kept that car, I would have had a car which feels even more premium than this. Because let's be honest, Tesla isn't a premium brand, right? It's premium technology, but the materials inside it and the fit and the finish and the build are not super premium. The Volvo was a palace. So I would have had a much nicer car to sit inside. It'd be less flexible than this because it was a saloon rather than a hatch, and this is a very big hatchback. It's not even just a normal hatchback. It would have had tyres which were a little bit on the silly side, 20-inch with little tiny bits of rubber, but okay, fine. But it would have been completely paid off. The real issue that I had with the Volvo was the drivetrain. So to go back to my 2 points about why you'd want to get an EV, one of those was about the fact that the electric drivetrain is just better than any mechanical car, regardless of how good the gearbox was. But in the Volvo, the gearbox wasn't great. It was a 4-cylinder diesel, 2 litre, mated to an 8-speed automatic, and it was a slush box. You could not hustle that car to save your life. So I would have been quite bored driving that car, but I would have been driving around in supreme smugness because, hey, look at me in my shiny Volvo running on its 20-inch wheels, and look, it's got its pearlescent white paint, and doesn't it look pretty, and all of those other things. Yeah, I would have done all of that, but I would not have been as happy and having as much fun as I am in this car. I would also have been spending quite a lot of money, let's be brutally honest, on fuel. So I know diesel owners say, hey, my car can do X miles per gallon. You know what? I hear a lot of people say it, but I think in the real world, for average use, it isn't like that. You might well get miles per gallon X on a run, but for mixed use, diesels are not great. As soon as you start doing anything that involves running around in a town or a city, your fuel economy is poor. And of course, if you're doing a lot of running around in a town or a city, then you're probably going to be braking it, because diesel particulate filters and things like that do not like being run short distances, whereas an EV doesn't care. So I would have been spending a huge amount of money on fuel. On my Bournemouth video, I talked about the fact that it was cheaper driving an EV, even using public charging, because of course it was. And for other trips where I can plug the car in at home, I mean, you know, it costs buttons to run this car, and it would have cost an awful lot to be doing shorter trips in the Volvo. I'm not going to quote numbers at you, because how can I put this? I could have made up some numbers to be putting on screen next to me, but it would have been made up. So let's just talk about this in generalities. The other thing, of course, with the Volvo is that car liked to be serviced. And you basically had as I remember it, an annual service plan. So you would have an interim service, and then the following year you'd have a major service, and then after that another interim service, and so on. The interim service that I recall paying was something like 360 quid, and the major service was closer to 600 quid. So you're doing that every single year. That is an awful a lot of money, which I haven't been paying with the Tesla. The tyres, it used to eat tyres like it was going out of business, because little 20-inch rubber band tyres were not great, and they were quite expensive to buy. So I would have burned through a lot more tyres than I'm doing. So overall, what I think I would have been doing is balancing off the payments that I've got on this car with the running costs that I would have been having on that car. And that really is the choice. As I said, if you already own a car and the car is still running fairly reliably and isn't costing you a fortune in maintenance and servicing and all of those other things, then the only reason to replace that with any other car is because you want to change, or because the body type doesn't suit you anymore, or you're bored, or whatever else. Financially, absolutely, keep the car that you've got. So to go back to that question that was posed in my comments, well, you know, where's the $5,000 Tesla? It's a great point. Cheap EVs, cheap used EVs, just aren't here yet. And how can I put this? Until they are here yet, it's not going to be an option for so many people. And I get the angst and frankly the anger that is generated from a lot of people. They don't want to feel like they're being pressured into doing something where they don't think they want to do it. And how can I put this? For an awful lot of people who are really, really virulently anti-EV, they've never actually driven an EV, and they haven't thought about it other than I haven't thought about it, therefore it's a bad idea. And I know some people think like that, and that's absolutely fine. But there is good news, because even in a country like the UK, where there is a net zero transition going on, and there is going to be continued movement towards electric vehicles, whether you like it or not, they're going to keep on coming, and the choices on petrol and diesel will keep going away. Even here, your car, if it still runs on petrol or diesel, is still going to be on the road and drivable, and it's not going to be a problem at all for a long, long, long time. And here's the thing, guys, right? For the people who think, well, Ian, you're running an EV channel, so of course you're an EV zealot or an evangelist or whatever else you put it. Well, I've also got an old car, and it's petrol, and it's manual. And you know what? It's great. We keep that car as the second car. If you need a car to go and dump at the airport for a few days, it's that car. If you need a car to drive anywhere or to jump into a dodgy place, it's that car. It's pre-dented on practically every panel, but mechanically it's still absolutely sound, despite the fact that it's a 2009 car and it's got more than 100,000 miles on it, right? It is still a decent car, and the intention is to run it into the ground, which is not going to be this year or next year or any other time that we can see. We want to keep the thing and keep running it. So for the people who've got an old car as their main car, all I can say is good on you. I'm not against that. I've got one myself. And if you don't want to get an EV, don't get one. I suppose to summarize this though, there is a rather basic point, which is when I decided to just get a Tesla, and yes, I know I've changed the name of the channel, but bear with me, I'm still doing a Tesla channel. But when I decided to just get a Tesla, I'd already decided that I was going to do this very YouTube channel that you're watching me on. So when I say, well, maybe I should have kept the Volvo, I'm not just talking about a car. I'm actually talking about a business decision, a lifestyle decision, because this is part of my business enterprises, is making YouTube videos, and with respect to it, being paid to do so. Not by you guys directly. I haven't started Patreon or anything yet. I'm sure it's coming, right? But I earn revenue from YouTube, and that is a really good thing. And actually getting this channel started has been a great thing for me. But I still pine for that car. Every now and then you have a car that you sold and you think, why did I sell that? And there's been points where I could have said, well, maybe I should have kept that one. Maybe I should have kept that one. My Mini Cooper petrol, I missed that car, but I wouldn't have it back. The Volvo diesel, I would have back in a heartbeat, even if it meant not having this car, even if it meant not talking to you guys on YouTube. Well, and on that bombshell, to quote Jeremy Clarkson, we're going to leave it there. But what cars have you sold and then really, really, really regretted? What car do you own that you know you're going to miss when eventually it goes? And they all go in the end. Tell me about it in the comments. Let me know. Like and subscribe and share the video and all of those yada 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 things. And I'll see you back here very soon on the Tesla question.